Welcome back to another episode of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. I'm your host, Chad Everett Broshears. I hope you guys and girls had a wonderful Father's Day weekend. I know that's quite a bit going on, and it's a great time to celebrate family. So, okay, today's video is actually not going to be that long. What just came to mind is, as I was working with one of my clients earlier today, she's one of my developmental clients that's working on the 8 areas that I've mentioned in previous episodes. Let me draw that back because I bit my word halfway in. When I ask people what they think it takes to change, like how much effort, what does it take to actually make change in your life? I commonly hear like 10%, 5%, something like that. Sometimes 20, sometimes like go all in or don't go at all. Like how well has that served you in your life? Oh, I mean, it's not that it hasn't served them, but lasting change comes through patience. Oh, I was told once by a very wise individual, the best way to make change is go 1% a day. Now, when I talk about 1% a day, it also has to do with a significant overview. How many areas are we capable of addressing in our life? And if you followed my series on Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia on YouTube, you'll see that I've talked about 8 different areas of maturity, all broke down into each one of the videos or the episodes, compartmentalizing it because of the desire to actually have a better understanding in each one of those areas so that it's not all conflated and collapsed into itself. So 1% could be I'm devoting 1% of development in being better with finances. That doesn't mean that tomorrow you're going to be, uber wealthy just simply because you decided to put a little effort into it. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time, but a lot of people give up way too soon because they take on too much, or they take on too much in a dynamic way and not enough in an individual way. More transition stress than they're capable of dealing with. If you caught the previous episode talking about transition stress, I'll do a quick little recap on what transition stress is. Transition stress is the stress you experience when you're transitioning from one area to another. So if you say, I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes, you have the addiction you need to deal with. You'll have the habit value that you need to deal with. And then there's that transition across the habit that goes into other habits that you need to do. And it's the stress that occurs inside of that, non-chemical based. I'm not speaking about the chemical element. That's a nicotine or the other chemicals that are in cigarettes. But when you go to change a behavior, there's a transition stress value that is associated with that behavior. If you're going to change a behavior that is, I'm going to stop biting my nails. Well, you're likely biting your nails as a coping mechanism to deal with something else. You may not even consider it as a coping mechanism. You're just sitting there just gnawing away when you're not paying attention, as it's commonly associated with nerves and being nervous or anxious. And you're using the biting of the nails as a coping for that nervousness. Transition stress occurs when you make a change. Any change. There's a transition value. If you take on 50% of your life as a change, you're going to have to deal with more than 50% of transition stress. It's going to magnify significantly to try to take into consideration every single one of the coping mechanisms that you're using. Now, if you have a lot of coping mechanisms that you're unaware of because it's your daily habits, it's like a fish in water, you're unaware of it because it's something that you've done for so long, you consider that it's just one of the things you do, and not realizing that it actually has its origins in coping. So whenever you take on any degree of change, it's always wise to consider how much transition stress you'll go through. We're going to go through it, we all do. Transition stress takes place when you're exercising. It is all these things. What is the transition? That's the stress value that's inside of a transition. So if you're going to change 1% every day, you actually have a manageable amount of transition stress, and you're more likely to make a meaningful long-term change. You also need the safety of other behaviors and habits that have supported you up until that point that make you feel confident and comfortable. So when you take on the new change, you're also likely to give yourself more forgiveness. You have your retreat, which is the majority of your life. You can just be like, you know what, I'm going to back away from this for a second. But if it's only 1%, typically it's so minuscule that it's not something that you need to really back away from. It's just something you keep pushing forward. You're experimenting your way through change. But if you take on 10%, that's something that might have enough transition stress, that has you go, I'm out. I'm not doing this. Can't do this. Won't do this. So if you want to make meaningful long-term change, try to take on something as far as 1% every day. I've done that with great success, specifically in education and on the reading side of things, like actually buying books and reading them. If you knew me in high school, you'd know that I wasn't necessarily the most studious of students. I just kind of existed and hung out and had more of a personal life than necessarily an academic life. It wasn't until after I came out of high school that I finally fell in love with learning. I mean, I loved learning. I just didn't like the standard structure that we were introduced to in elementary. So 1% every day. It's not too much transition stress. That's the killer. That's the one. It's the habit killer. You don't know about it. You don't take into consideration habit killers and those stress values. So transition stress is a habit killer. If you take on more than you can actually cope with, you may be able to cope with the change at 25% for a week, maybe a month, 6 months. Oh, it's going to be associated with how much, like what you're changing for, what the habits are supporting. So lose weight for your partner, your lover, whomever, or to draw somebody in, then perhaps you're just wanting to lose weight for that person. And as you continue to experience that transition stress, at some point in time, let's say you've got the lasting idea or impression of a relationship, and then you just back off. You started with a pretense that doesn't necessarily support you long term. So it could be highly motivating, but over time it could also knock you back. So I won't go on for long about this. I know that there are those variables when you go to change and make habit-based change. Understand why you're wanting to make the change. Those kind of things also make a big difference. I've often looked back and considered why I've achieved what I've achieved in my life, why other people have achieved what they have achieved, and then others that haven't, and curiously engaged. What is it that actually is the difference? Is there a genetic element, and is there some sort of secret sauce that I have, or that people that are successful have? And the answer is predominantly no. There's not a secret sauce. It's not some sort of genetic advancement or advantage. It's the way they look at the world, the way they look at challenges, the way they look at progress, where they put their anchor for success or movement. There's a lot of it in that. Not so much about like they just have some sort of secret values. You know, it's a lot of these things are just common base core values that they use. If you want to make the change, man, 1% a day will make a huge difference. In the course of 1 year, you're going to be drastically different. Just don't take on more than you can tolerate. Every time you have a failure that's done through transition stress that you don't look at as a lesson, you're increasing the baggage of not trying it again in the future. It's a weight value. It's the baggage of life. Give yourself enough forgiveness to say, you know what, I don't have to carry this and I can try again. Maybe this time I try in a different perspective, or maybe I've had enough life lessons in other places that I have, transferable skills into this endeavor that I tried 10 years ago, or that I tried last week, however long the timeline is that creates a change for you. For anybody who's tuning in thinking that they're going to see like a makeup tutorial or flashy clothing or something revealing, that isn't this channel. That isn't these episodes. These are just to help try to give some different insights. We're all growing together, and it's like playing chess. You want to play with people that challenge you, and that's the intent for this, is to help create enough of a desirable challenge to make the changes in life. Wherever you are is where you are, and you're there for a reason. If you want to make the changes to accomplish something else, time to get busy on it. Don't take on too much. Don't take on too little. 1% is perfect. Oh. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close it off for the day in this episode, unless there's any questions that might be out there in the audience. But for the time being, yeah, this is, you want to make the change, let's do it. I don't need to be up on, 600 milligrams of caffeine bouncing off the walls to do it. I'm far more, I like methodical and analyzed movements and, being well thought out and engaged. So, all right. With that, you share this video with the person in your life will benefit from it, that's struggling with making change. Long-term, short-term, doesn't matter. If somebody's looking to get into a coaching model or a system that supports you in the changes of those 8 different areas of maturity, I obviously do offer that as a way of supporting people, and my clients have greatly appreciated it, as it's a process. It's not something that's going to change you overnight, but it kind of does, but it doesn't. It's not the big picture changes. It's the, that happens in time, but in the meantime, it's like creating the life that you want, and creating it in a way that it's not, be careful what you wish for, because you don't have to worry about wishing for something that's going to be, a negative to you. Oh, thanks for checking in. Like I said, share this video with the person in your life that would benefit from it. And subscribe, go to the YouTube channel, Growing Up in the Wilds Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Subscribe to it, hit the bell notification, like the videos, comment, please. I always enjoy the comments, and this really does make a difference for me, because I get your engagement and your feedback, and it does help with future videos and future episodes. As I practice this every day, 1% getting better, this is it. It's going to sound better, look better, and overall have better production values in time. It's the same for me as it is for anybody else. Just put yourself out there and really try to grow. With that, I'm not your guru. I'm nothing like that. I'm just out trying to make a difference in the world and make change that we could all fall in love with. Thanks so much. Again, this is Chad Everett Brochures. I am the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia, and I greatly appreciate your time, your attention. And until next time, let's create something great together. Enjoy.